Good morning, Lancaster. We're back for week 1 of term 2.
Campus has been quiet over the festive period, but with term starting again, it is buzzing.
Coming up today, we've got a short feature on the Je suis Charlie demonstration on campus and an interview with LUSU VP Union Development Damon Fairley about the winter officer training for newly elected officers.
We'll also be looking ahead to the National Student Television Association Awards, which are this year being joint hosted by LA1 TV and PSTV from UCLan, as well as a look ahead at the campus headlines.
Now, making all the news headlines in the past week was the Paris attacks and the terrorist acts against the French magazine Charlie Hebdo after they published satirical material regarding the Muslim prophet Muhammad.
A huge movement organised and took 1 million people took to the streets of France in support of free speech and anti-discrimination. At the same time, students in Lancaster stood in solidarity in Alexandra Square.
In the wake of the tragic shootings that took place at the offices of Paris magazine Charlie Hebdo last week, there have been outpourings of condemnation of the attacks and outpourings of solidarity across France and indeed the rest of the democratic world. Thousands of people all over the democratic world have been holding their own demonstrations, and here at Lancaster the students have been organising one of their own. We're here about to witness a minute's silence in tribute to those who lost their lives.
I suggest we do like a minute of silence for everyone who died in the last few days. I don't know if you heard about everything that happened, but 16 people died, so it's like a real shock for our country. And then we can just do prayers or whatever you prefer regarding of what you believe in or what you don't believe in, against violence, discrimination, especially Islamophobia, which is a real problem in France as well at the moment and in every other country. So yeah, let's start the minute of silence. And it's definitely bigger than just, it's not just about France. I think everyone was really surprised with all the support that we got from every country. We had people in Lebanon or in Palestine, Israel, America, just like with signs saying Je suis Charlie or I am Charlie, saying that they were supporting our cause, and they believe in the same values as us. They believe in freedom of speech, they believe in freedom of expression, and they want to fight Islamophobia and discrimination, like all the values that our republic represent. And it was I think it was a really good thing that everyone supported us in this, and I'm really happy that people turned up today. I was really worried.
So that was our look at the Je suis Charlie demonstration in Alex Square, where people have come together and been able to show that they are not willing to back down in the face of such hatred, and are willing to unite in order to preserve freedom of speech and the principles of democracy.
Now, on a bit of a lighter note, how was your Christmas, guys?
Had a very nice Christmas.
Yes, I ate far too much, didn't do nearly enough work, but Yeah, it was good. Yeah.
Get up to anything exciting?
We had I'm from the Isle of Man. We don't normally have an ice rink over there, but they brought one over for Christmas, and it turns out I'm rubbish. I had a 12-year-old dragging me around, and she was 100 times better than me. So that was.
Did you fall?
No, I didn't fall over, and I didn't break any bones in my body or anybody else's. So I had to say that was more of a success than I thought it was going to be. Yes. Do you get up to anything?
Went skiing, ate a lot, the usual, to be honest. Yeah.
Nice.
No, it was good fun.
Nice little bit of a break.
Yes, exactly.
Yes, and now back to too much work, I
Yes.
suspect. And anyway, on with the news headlines. The university's ongoing view into the possible changes and improvements that could be made regarding the college system is set to lead to the release of the overall findings and recommendations in the coming weeks. Currently, a confidential report following meetings by the College Review Panel has been written containing recommendations on how to ensure improvements in the university's collegiate system. The review has taken place with the goal to consider the effectiveness of the current college staffing structures and to make recommendations for the future to enhance support and leadership within the colleges. Despite initial fears regarding the aims of the review, according to Vice President Union Development Damon Fairley, the process was largely a positive one. Speaking with Scan on Monday, Fairley said, "What was really apparent throughout this review was that there was a very clear focus on how could we improve the college experience at Lancaster and how could we ensure that it is working in the best interest of students."
In other news, from the start of Lent term, Furness College Bar Trevor has been closed during the daytime as the bar is not taking enough money to warrant bar staff for large parts of the day. Whilst the communal bar area is set to remain open during usual hours, the bar itself will now only be open from 4 p.m. onwards. It's believed that a major factor for the closure was the number of students who were coming into the bar to use the communal area for studying, while study space in the library is being refurbished, but not providing the bar itself with sufficient business to make it financially viable. New Furness President Polly MacDonald believes that the closure is a great shame as the bar provides a hub for Furness College and is a brilliant bar with a brilliant atmosphere, hoping that these changes will not be implemented for too long. The closure may likely be temporary, but has not yet been decided. However, a Facebook group has appeared titled Save Trev Bar, with hopes to get the bar opened fully once more. Following the murder of 12 people at the headquarters of French satirical newspaper Charlie Hebdo by Muslim extremists, Lancaster has been one of the numerous universities across the country to show solidarity with the demonstrations of support in Paris. Many across the French capital and internationally stood up this week in protest against fundamentalist attacks against free speech as well as instances of Islamophobia in reaction to the incidents. Roughly 80 students gathered near the underpass on Sunday afternoon where they held messages of Je suis Charlie and wrote personal messages in reaction to the atrocities. Organiser of the gathering, Victoire Melchioré, said to Scan, "I organised it because I felt really sad about not being able to go to the French gathering, the one in Paris. I know that I would have been there if I had been there, I would have gone, and I thought that maybe if I'm feeling like this, maybe some other people are feeling the same."
And on a slightly lighter note, in the early hours of Sunday morning, firefighters were called to the university to rescue a drunk student trapped under a fridge. According to the Lancaster Guardian, firefighters had to rescue the student at 3:45 a.m. after he was unable to escape from the fridge which fell on top of him. The fridge was also blocking the doorway of the building in Grisdale Avenue, so officers had to climb into the kitchen area. They were then able to lift the fridge off the student, who was fortunately unhurt after the accident. We're now joined by Henry Saker-Clark, the Scan News editor. Henry, it was interesting to see the College Review back in the headlines. As Jess said, it's currently not being officially released, but what do we expect to find?
Well, over the next couple of weeks, it's going to be, first time we'll probably see it is in Union Council. But what is going to happen is there are going to be a series of recommendations over how one of the large things will be staffing, but numerous aspects of the colleges can be improved. The report is it's been released, but it's completely confidential, so only certain people can see it.
Will students get to see the report?
Within the next couple of weeks, we expect so. It is expected at Union Council will basically be when it'll be public, really.
Okay.
So
that's next Thursday, isn't it? A week tomorrow.
I believe it's actually a fortnight's time.
Oh, right. Okay.
But then is when it'll be made public and people will be able to. Probably the best opportunity will be to go to Union Council and hear it, the recommendations debated on and looked into. It's very much, the process isn't finished. There's still a forum aspect to it, so people can gauge greater opinion and pardon me, and can still make a larger impact to how the colleges will improve or change.
So students can still have an impact at this stage?
Yeah, and to be honest, students have had quite a large impact throughout. There have been 2 student representatives on the board. They had numerous groups of students who were talked to, for example, the college presidents throughout the process. Although, for example, there possibly could have been more of an impact made by college presidents or collegiate representatives in the student body, but still there is going to be some impact in, for example, Union Council.
It's interesting to see that Damon Fairley, LUSU Vice President, said that it was a largely positive review, because in the Union Council, where they were choosing the people who would be sitting on this review and who would be taking a lead from an officer point of view, there was a feeling that it was very much a threat to the colleges, and it is very interesting to see that it seems to be a positive experience with the university and the Students' Union working together for the better of the colleges, rather than the university threatening the colleges or sidelining the collegiate system, which has been seen in the past few years.
Yeah. Yes, and although the process, he told me that the process was a positive one, although he did also have criticisms of it and criticisms of some of the recommendations. That's the thing as well, is that you can have an incredibly good process, but if you don't agree with any of the recommendations that end up getting made, then it doesn't necessarily matter how positive it was. And I think the most important thing will be that the findings and recommendations made are things students want implemented, and students will say, no, we don't support this, or yes, we do support it.
Do you think there's any conflict of interest between LUSU and the colleges? Because we all know that they're a part of LUSU, but if you look at the universities which have strong collegiate systems, they generally have a students' union which is either weaker or takes more of a backseat on that sort of stuff. So do you think there's any conflict of interest there?
Possibly. I think to one extent, for example, like Damon has said, they had 2 student union representatives on the board of 9 panel members, but no actual student collegiate representatives. Whilst they have to represent the colleges, Laura Clayson and Damon, in their roles, they are not solely representative of it. They have large parts of their roles which are apart from that, and they therefore have a lot of other things on their plates. Although, for example, Damon being a former college president, he was perhaps in a better position than some would to represent the colleges.
If we move on to the Paris attacks now, Jess, you were in France at the time.
I was.
What was the reaction within France? We've seen a lot of the reaction internationally, condemnation, world leaders moving to France. Was there a fearful reaction within France that things were out of control?
Well, initially it was shock. And then a couple of days later, there were the hostages taken, and then that was more fear. I think it evolved over the couple of days, but it was just constantly on the radio, on the TV. It was present. It was never leaving. Right, wherever you were, people were talking about it, discussing it, what to do, how they could take part in supporting the victims, and it was really nice to see that everyone pulled together.
There's been a lot of condemnation of international leaders, actually, because many of them gathered in Paris for the rally. Now, there's been condemnation of Barack Obama on one hand for not going, and I believe it was the US ambassador who represented him in Paris instead. But there's also been a lot of criticism of the leaders who did go, because there's leaders from the Palestinian authorities, Israel, Russia, are among some of the ones who've been more prominently criticised because they don't support press freedom, because there's all these examples recently of them jailing journalists, basically. Do you think that...
Does that mean that they shouldn't be there?
Well, that's what I was just going to say. Is it hypocritical of them to be there? I certainly think that some of the idea behind the rally was in support of unity, but also in support of press freedom, which I think is an interesting point for some of the countries. I think there has been potentially a bit too much criticism of some of the countries, but I think it was an LSE student who tweeted something about just about every single one of these leaders, and it does. I think it puts them in a position of damned if they do, damned if they don't, because Barack Obama was criticised for not going, and then all of these criticised for going. So it was interesting to see all that.
Yeah, I think it's interesting we say Barack Obama when you compare it to the others. He didn't turn up, although America you would argue is one of the sort of freest countries as regards to freedom of speech. Whereas, yeah, for example, it was Egypt, the Egyptian president was there, despite the fact that last week, I think it was, 3 Al Jazeera journalists were jailed in Egypt.
Yes.
And which is completely hypocritical. I personally feel that if, you can't support, you can't do it with one hand and not with the other. I think if you're going to support the sort of movement, as this was, to saying we support freedom of the press, and you can't be doing other things, alongside that. So.
And finally, just before we move on, we have to discuss this Grisdale student who managed to trap themselves in a fridge.
Of course.
How frequently do you know how frequently the fire brigade get called to incidents like this on campus?
I don't think it's very often. I don't think it can be particularly. I was quite surprised that the fire brigade were even called, because a fridge fell on someone, and
you have to ask why their flatmates didn't get them out.
But,
maybe they couldn't get into the kitchen though. As it
maybe
said.
Yes.
Possibly, but again, if you have a large number of friends, maybe this person was on their own. But if you have numerous friends, then surely they'd be able to lift a fridge.
Yes.
So I don't know.
Given that nobody was injured and nobody died, and
he wasn't injured.
Apart from for the particular student, it is quite entertaining. I think it's the definition of an "and finally" story, and it's nice to see something lighter at the end of the week. Although I think the student involved is probably hoping it disappears from social media as soon as possible.
Yes, and lastly, can we ask you a few questions about Trevor Bar? Do you think it'll change? Do you think it'll matter, the fact that it'll be closed until 4 p.m?
I don't think it'll matter too much. It'll matter to some people, because obviously some people went there and some people used it a lot, and therefore obviously they will miss out a lot. I do think not enough people used it in order to keep it open. I do think there is a problem among the colleges having 9 bars. I think that is always going to be a significant problem. If you look at similar sized universities, often campus universities, they do not have this large number of bars. They'll often have 1 or 2 larger bars. And I think by having so many separate ones, they're, whilst all trying to make a decent amount of money to keep running, they are still competing. And you'll notice that other colleges, such as Far Bar, is getting busier. And yesterday it was very busy. But that is probably impacted from the fact that Furness is now closed.
So you'd say that some bars are a lot more popular than others?
Yeah, and I think that's inevitable. People will go there for certain things. For example, Bowl the Fard, you can get lunch there.
Trevor's always seemed quite a popular bar, and it's had a very loyal following. But do you think it's been hit by bars such as County getting Costa in during the day, and they've extended their opening hours, and Fylde's food offerings been improved, and Boland started doing pie and stuff like that?
Possibly. I think one thing that Trevor doesn't necessarily have going for it is that it's relatively small compared to the other ones. The sort of communal seating area near the bar is relatively small, so you do often get people go in and then have to leave for whatever reasons. For example, one of the things that has been said is that people have been in there studying at bars and then have had to sort of not been buying drinks, and then people have come wanting to buy drinks but nowhere to sit down, so just don't. So if you lose business that way, that is unfortunately some students who just want to study impacting.
So it may be a temporary knock-on of the library refurbishment?
Possibly, and again, that's what has been said, is that it might be just a temporary closure, which we have to hope, really.
Okay, now every year all the student television stations in the UK get together to attend the National Student Television Association Conference and Awards, or NASTA. The awards are the student TV equivalent of the BAFTAs.
This year, LA1 TV and Preston Student TV PSTV are jointly hosting the event in Preston. There are 23 categories in the awards and 44 affiliated stations competing for them. The awards are judged by respected television professionals who will also give feedback on the entrants to help stations improve their content.
Tickets for this year's conference went on sale on Monday, and the latest episode of NASTA News has all the details, so let's take a look.
Hello and welcome to a very special edition of NASTA News. I'm Matt Murphy, the host officer for NASTA 2015 from PSTV.
And I'm Chris Osborne, LA1 TV station manager and deputy host officer for NASTA 2015. We've got some really exciting announcements about this year's NASTA conference.
If you haven't heard already, the conference will be held here in Preston from the 27th to the 29th of March, and you can buy your tickets now.
I know you're starting to think about what you're going to enter for the NASTA Awards. Well, on Monday the 19th of January you will receive the award guidelines, and on Monday the 26th of January submissions will open. The staggered deadlines for the award categories will be between the 16th and the 20th of February, and we will be announcing information about the workshops at the conference on Monday the 9th of March.
As we said, tickets are available right now, and to buy your tickets, go to our web address, nasta-awards.tv. There are 3 tickets types you can choose from. For £145, you get your full conference ticket and access to a twin room. For £125, you'll get your conference ticket and you'll be sharing a double or treble room. For £80, you'll get everything at the conference, but you have to find your own accommodation. We highly recommend that you buy your tickets with your station or with someone you know, otherwise we cannot guarantee that you'll be placed with people you know and maybe in another hotel.
On Monday, 19th of January, you will receive the award guidelines. There are 23 awards this year, as Video to Music was brought back after last year's conference. This year, in addition to the guidelines, there are also technical standards to which every entry must conform. These will be in the guidelines document and also on the website. Submissions open on the 26th of January and you'll have 4 weeks to upload your entries. The deadlines are staggered and the individual dates for each category are posted on the website and in the awards guidelines document. There are a couple of important contact details you'll need in case you have any problems with your entries. If you have any problems with the technical standards, please contact NASTA Technical Officer Rob Sumner on technical@nasta.tv. If you have any problems uploading your entries, please contact NASTA Support at la1tv.co.uk and our team will get straight back to you. Please also use this address if you need to request to upload an entry after the deadline or have mitigating circumstances, and your request will be passed to the NASTA exec to make a decision.
Don't forget, you can buy a ticket from now until the 27th of February. And if you've got any questions, you can contact us both. I'm on matthew.murphy@nasta.tv.
And I'm on christopher.osborne@nasta.tv. We're really excited about this year's NASTA conference and are looking forward to welcoming you all to Preston on the 27th of March. Sessions at the conference on Monday the 9th of March.
The NASTA Awards do promise for a spectacular evening, so to keep updated, visit nastaawards.co.uk.
We mentioned earlier in the show that Lucy recently hosted their Winter Officer Training Weekend, which saw all of the newly elected JCR officers and cross-campus officers attend the summit for their training before their term begins.
It's an important part for the running of LUSU as it defines the new officers and ultimately helps govern the Students' Union. To talk to us more about exactly what it is and what they do and how the Winter Officer Training helps is VP Union Development Damon Fairley. Hello Damon.
Hello.
So can you tell us about the Winter Officer Training, please?
Yep. So basically at the start of each year, full year, so the start of Lent term, we do our annual officer training event. So hopefully everyone voted in the recent elections. It's where we train all the new JCR officers, cross-campus officers, loads of people come. We just give them the practical tools to do their jobs and also to create those networks.
So around about how many people do you have attending?
It was about 140 this year.
Oh, so it's a big... Is it a long day then? Do you do it throughout a whole day?
So it's over 2 days.
Okay.
So the first day is very much focused on the teams building sort of their own priorities, their own goals, how we can help them achieve that. And the second day is more role specific, so each college obviously has social officers, those sorts of things, and we start to develop their ideas and try and make them a reality.
So were you one of the people helping to teach others?
I wouldn't really call it teaching.
No,
I was around, or shall we say?
Passing on your wisdom.
That's a very
That's a nicer way of putting it.
So did you do anything differently this year?
We did. We did a lot of consultation last term with the outgoing officers around what they did and didn't feel prepared for their year in office. And we decided to change the focus more onto the JCRs themselves and them building their own priorities and the things they were elected to do and focusing it all around them, whereas in previous years it's been more about what LUSU is, how they fit into LUSU, whereas we wanted to reverse that, so it's more about them rather than us.
So would you say it went better than last year?
I would, but I suppose I would say that because I organised it.
Yeah, well, that's true.
But I do think it went better this year.
Okay, and what are the benefits then? They're pretty obvious, but can you just run us through the benefits of having this?
Well, the benefits are all of our new officers, because we obviously want people to run for officer positions that haven't ever been involved before in LUSU. So the whole point of officer training is we can give them all the tools, get everyone up to the same level, so no one sort of enters their position without knowing what to do, and so everyone feels supported. Yeah.
Yeah?
There is a certain amount of governance stuff that needs to be done by these officers, and like constitutional work and that sort of things. And is that something you prepare them for? Because if you look at Union Council or any of the JCRs, they would not function properly if people do not know the governance rules and the bylaws.
Yeah.
Is that something that you help prepare them for?
I gave a very clear steer this year that I didn't want officer training to be about governance, bylaws and constitutions and things like that, because although they're important, I think we get very caught up a lot of the time on telling our officers, these are the rules, these are the regulations, when what we want to be saying is, if you've got ideas, we want to support you, help you achieve those ideas. So the governance training, we did touch on it, and we did say, look, you do have bylaws, we do have constitutions, but don't see them as just don't see them as red tape, essentially, because we don't want to cap innovation. I think that's one thing we've been quite bad on in previous years, is people come up with good ideas and say, we can't do that because of the governance. To me, yeah.
Surely it's something they'll learn throughout the year anyway.
Yeah, it's something you learn. It's hard to teach that anyway, because it's stuff you just sort of have to read in your own time and get used to it. And each college obviously has a different bylaw, so it's quite hard to do a one session for all of them.
Have you spoken to many of the people who did the training? Have you got any feedback at all yet?
Yeah, we've just sent our survey out. We always do a survey afterwards to ask for initial feedback from it. At the actual event as well, we took feedback. We've already got some really positive stuff around. We could have made the social stuff better in the evenings, and there were some sessions we probably need to look at again and just see how they work better, but we're never going to get it 100% right.
No, of
but
course.
I do think this year was an improvement and has provided a real foundation for next year to make it that one step better.
Now, earlier on we were talking about the college review.
Yep.
And as we've just been discussing JCRs and how that functions, do you think that's going to be one of the biggest issues for the JCRs themselves this year? How will it impact upon these newly elected officers?
Yeah. The college review, I think, has been a really important process that has been long overdue. It's looked in detail at mainly arrangements in colleges, staffing arrangements, how colleges function and how they best fit into the student experience and how they impact that. Throughout the whole process, I have to say I do think everyone was extremely positive. I didn't hear any university member of staff or anyone be negative. So that was what was really good about the review. And I think although the recommendations haven't been released yet, they'll be released the end of this month / next month. There's nothing in there that I think is controversial or stuff that isn't like common sense. I think a lot of it is good things for the colleges. So I don't really think it's going to be an issue for JCRs in their term of office. I actually think it'll be a positive experience for them because they'll be helping to further research some of these recommendations and take them forward.
So how much of a say do they have in these recommendations, the newly elected JCR?
Yeah. Well, the newly elected JCRs, what happens to the recommendations, they'll go to the University Council, and if the University Council adopts them, they're then researched further with the view of implementing them. So the new JCRs will be part of that process, just as the old ones were part of the initial review itself. So there's going to be lots of opportunities for various groups to get involved.
Have you seen a change in attitude from the university to the college system over the last few years? Because you've been here nearly 4 years now.
Don't remind me.
And it has, in the past, we have seen that senior officers of the university have been recorded saying the college system is either a minor or a minor aspect of the university, or it's actually a bad thing for Lancaster. Do you think there's been a change?
I do. I'm not too sure whether that's just because I now speak to the university a lot more in my role, so I understand their viewpoint more. But when I was a college president, I did feel that the university wasn't committed to the collegiate experience. Like we saw things like the colleges section off the website be removed, but that's now been added back on. The university's marketing manager is very clear that the colleges are one of our top 5 aspects that really appeal to new students. And I think the university realises that our NSS score is fundamentally determined by the collegiate experience. Lots of people give us higher scores because they like the personal experience they get here at Lancaster. Because I think at a lot of other institutions, you arrive and you are almost like a number. You are just one of thousands, whereas when you come to Lancaster, you're always one of a smaller group as well as part of the wider Lancaster group. So I certainly think the university's bought into that philosophy, and the Vice-Chancellor has said on a number of occasions now that he thinks it's really important that we develop the collegiate experience.
Okay, well, thank you very much for joining us today, Damon. That's all we've got time for this week, but join us next week as we catch up on Refreshers Week activities.
There are also lots of events happening this term with Strictly Come Dancing, Lucy full-time officer elections, trying to replace Damon, and the Campus Fest, just some of the highlights we will be covering.
Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.